I stood there in the middle of our cramped little apartment, the phone still warm in my sweaty palm, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. How could one stupid, excited text message, just 6 little words telling my parents we were having a boy, turn my entire world upside down in the span of a single afternoon? And now, with my wife's belly round and heavy between us, our son kicking like he could already sense the storm brewing outside our door, I'm left sitting here in the quiet, wondering if I've just lost my own mother forever. All because I got too damn excited to wait one more week for the big reveal. It wasn't supposed to go like this. None of it. I replayed that moment 1,000 times in my head, the exact second my thumb hit send, and every single time I feel that same sick twist in my gut, like I swallowed a rock and it's still sitting there, heavy and cold. But to understand why that text shattered everything, I guess I have to take you back a little further. My mom, man, where do I even start? She's always been this larger-than-life presence in our family, but not in the good way. Egotistical? Narcissistic? The kind of woman who could turn any conversation into a spotlight on her own pain or her own sacrifices. Growing up, I learned early that love from her came with strings, thick, invisible ones that she could yank whenever she felt like it. She'd guilt-trip me over the smallest things, like forgetting to call her on a random Tuesday. Or she'd buy me something expensive and then hold it over my head for months. "After everything I've done for you," she'd say, voice dripping with that fake hurt tone that made my stomach clench every time. Hardships? She collected them like trophies, fishing for sympathy from anyone who'd listen, turning my dad's bad back or my sister's bad grades into her personal soap opera. I remember being 15, coming home from school one day to find her crying on the couch because my aunt had apparently stolen her thunder at a family barbecue by announcing her own pregnancy first. I sat there for hours, rubbing her back, telling her it was okay, while inside I was screaming that it wasn't about her. It was never just about her. But that's how it always was. She used favors and gifts like weapons, and God forbid you didn't fall in line. I carried that weight into adulthood, trying to keep the peace, trying to be the good son who didn't rock the boat. Until I met my wife. She was 20 when we started dating, bright-eyed and warm in a way that felt like sunlight after years in the shade. At 22 now, she's still the best thing that's ever happened to me. Her family? They're the complete opposite of mine. When we got engaged, her parents cried happy tears right there in their living room, hugging us both so tight I could smell the garlic from the pasta they'd been making. They didn't ask for anything in return. They just loved us. So when we found out she was pregnant with our first, I was terrified and thrilled all at once, heart racing in the doctor's office as the nurse pointed out that tiny flicker on the ultrasound screen. I called my parents first, voice cracking with excitement. My dad gave a gruff, "Congratulations, son." And my mom, well, she said the same, but it came out flat, like she was reading from a script. They showed up later with side hugs and a generic card. No tears, no offers to help pick out names or paint the nursery, just polite distance. Her family, though, they lost it. Her mom actually sobbed into my shoulder when we told them, whispering how she'd prayed for this moment. Her dad immediately started sketching crib designs on a napkin, and her sister, my sister-in-law now, jumped in with ideas for a gender reveal party before we even left their house. They offered to buy everything, the crib, the clothes, the diapers, the whole 9 yards. No strings, just pure, overwhelming joy that made my chest feel full in a way I didn't know was possible. I'd lie awake at night next to my wife, her hand on her still flat stomach, and feel this quiet gratitude washing over me. We were building something real here, a family that felt safe. The months ticked by in a blur of doctor visits and late-night cravings. Pickles at 2 a.m., her laughing as I ran to the store in my pajamas, the city lights of our little corner of town reflecting off the wet pavement. My wife glowed, you know? that pregnancy glow everyone talks about, but it was real on her. She'd catch me staring and tease me, pulling me close so I could feel the first flutters against my palm. I was over the moon. I wanted a boy so bad it hurt. Someone to teach how to throw a football, to fix cars with, to be the dad I wished I'd had growing up. But I kept it locked down because the in-laws were planning this epic gender reveal, and I didn't want to spoil the fun. The party was at their backyard, one of those perfect spring afternoons where the air smelled like fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke. Balloons everywhere in neutral yellows and greens. A big white box in the center of the table, rigged to pop with either blue or pink confetti. My sister-in-law and I were the only ones who knew. We'd gone to the ultrasound together a week earlier, and when the tech said, "It's a boy," I'd nearly dropped my phone. I hugged my wife so tight right after, whispering into her hair how perfect he was going to be. But the big moment was supposed to be at the party. Everyone gathered around, cameras out, laughter bouncing off the fence. My in-laws had gone all out. Games, a cake with the gender hidden inside, even a little banner that said, "He or she, let's see." I was buzzing, man, heart hammering with that good kind of nerves. Then the box popped. Blue confetti exploded everywhere, swirling in the breeze like tiny pieces of sky. My wife screamed with joy, tears streaming down her face as she threw her arms around me. Everyone cheered. Her dad lifted her off the ground in a bear hug, and her mom was already crying again, saying our son was going to be the luckiest kid alive. It was perfect. Pure, unfiltered happiness that wrapped around me like a warm blanket. In that moment, I felt like I finally had the family I'd always dreamed of. And yeah, I got carried away. Standing there in the middle of all that celebration, phone in my pocket vibrating from a few texts, I pulled it out without thinking. My parents hadn't shown up. Mom had been weird about the planning from the start, complaining that she wasn't involved enough, even though my wife and I had zero say in it. The in-laws had taken the lead, and honestly, it felt good to let them. But I wanted my folks to share this. I typed fast, thumbs flying. "It's a boy! Can't wait for you guys to meet him." Sent. Just like that. The reply from my dad came almost instantly. Heart emojis. "That's my grandson. We'll be there soon." But my mom? Radio silence at first. Then my phone buzzed again. I stepped away from the crowd, the laughter fading behind me as I read her message. "You told them before the party? Without involving me? I can't believe you'd put your in-laws ahead of your own family like this." My stomach dropped. The confetti was still crunching under my shoes, blue bits sticking to my jeans, but suddenly the backyard felt 10 degrees colder. I texted back, trying to smooth it over, explaining I'd just been excited, that the party wasn't even our idea. But she fired off more. "I feel so unwanted. You didn't even ask me to help plan. This is exactly why I knew something was off." She refused to come, said she was too hurt. My dad showed up later, alone, looking uncomfortable, but she stayed home. I drove home that night with my wife's hand on my knee, the radio low, but inside I was spiraling. Had I really messed up that bad? She was my mom. I loved her. Even through all the years of the guilt trips and the manipulations, I'd always said "I love you" at the end of every call, every text, like it was our ritual. But that night, when I called to check on her, she picked up, voice icy. "I just don't understand why you'd exclude me," she said, and I could hear the tears she was forcing. I apologized, over and over, offered to let her help with the baby shower my in-laws were already planning. She agreed, but it felt forced, like she was doing me a favor by even showing up in the group chat. The weeks after that, they dragged. She barely texted my wife anymore. No more check-ins on how the pregnancy was going, no questions about cravings or doctor appointments. Instead, she started throwing family get-togethers, barbecues at my aunt's, game nights at home, and we'd see the photos pop up on Facebook later. everyone smiling without us. A weekend trip to the lake, posted with captions like, "Family time is everything," while my wife and I sat on our couch, scrolling in silence. The nursery was coming together thanks to her parents. Soft blue walls, a crib already assembled in the corner. But every time I glanced at it, that rock in my stomach got heavier. I text my mom, "Love you," like always, and nothing. Just seen. No reply. It felt like a door slamming shut, slow and deliberate. The silence after that was deafening, stretching out over days that blurred into weeks, each one heavier than the last. My wife would catch me staring at my phone in the dim glow of our living room lamp, thumb hovering over the screen like I was willing it to light up with something, anything that felt like the mom I used to know. "Babe," she'd say softly one night, her hand resting on her growing belly as she shifted on the couch beside me, the faint scent of her lavender lotion mixing with the takeout pizza we'd ordered because neither of us felt like cooking. "You can't force her to be happy for us." Her voice was gentle, but I heard the edge underneath, the quiet frustration she tried to hide for my sake. I knew she was right, deep down I did, but that didn't stop the ache from spreading through my ribs every time I scrolled past another family photo on Facebook. My cousins laughing around a bonfire at the lake, my aunt's caption glowing like a slap. "Nothing beats family time." No tag for us, no "wish you were here." Just empty space where we should have been. I tried though. Lord knows I tried. When the baby shower planning kicked into high gear with my in-laws, I dragged my mom into the group chat like it was some kind of peace offering. "Hey Mom, we'd love your input on the cake flavors," I texted one afternoon, the nursery paint still fresh on my hands from helping her dad roll another coat of soft blue onto the walls earlier that day. The smell of it had lingered in my nose for hours, that clean, hopeful scent that should have made everything feel exciting. Instead, her reply came late that night, a single thumbs up emoji. No words, no excitement about whether it should be chocolate or vanilla, just acknowledgement, like I was a distant acquaintance instead of her son. My wife saw it over my shoulder and squeezed my arm, her touch warm against the chill that had settled in my bones. "She'll come around," she whispered, but her eyes told a different story. The same hurt I felt mirrored there, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about our son, about the life we were trying to build, without all the old shadows creeping in. The exclusions kept piling up like bricks in a wall I couldn't tear down. There was the Saturday barbecue at my uncle's place. My phone buzzed with a group text from my cousin inviting everyone except us. I saw the photos later that evening, while my wife and I were folding tiny onesies in the nursery, the fabric soft and new under my fingers, little blue elephants marching across the cotton. My mom was in every shot, smiling wide, arm around my sister like nothing was wrong. My stomach twisted so hard I had to set the onesie down and step outside for air, the cool night breeze hitting my face as cars hummed by on the street below. I called her the next day, heart pounding in my throat as the phone rang. "Hey Mom, we saw the pics from the barbecue. Looked fun. Next time, maybe we can..." She cut me off mid-sentence, voice sharp and clipped. "Oh, it was last minute. Didn't want to bother you two with the pregnancy stuff." Bother. The word landed like a punch. I stood there in our tiny kitchen, the fridge humming softly behind me, and felt the bile rise in my throat. This was the woman who'd once cried for hours because I chose my wife's Thanksgiving dinner over hers. Now she was shutting us out like we were the inconvenience? And the "I love yous." Man, those killed me the most. We'd always ended every call that way, every text, like a little anchor keeping us tied together no matter what. It was our thing, even through the rough patches. But after the gender reveal, it changed. I'd type it out at the end of a message about the latest ultrasound, our son's heartbeat strong and steady on the screen, that whoosh, whoosh sound still echoing in my ears from the doctor's office, and hit send. Read, no reply. I'd say it on the phone after a quick check-in about the shower details. Love you, Mom. Dead air. Just her breathing for a second before she'd mumble something about having to go. Each ignored I love you felt like another crack in the foundation I'd spent my whole life trying to hold together. I'd hang up and sit on the edge of our bed, staring at the ultrasound photo taped to the mirror, my wife's gentle snores drifting from under the covers. Inside, my thoughts raced. Was this really all because I got excited? Because I shared a moment of pure joy without running it by her first? The guilt gnawed at me, mixing with the slow-burning anger I didn't know how to name. She was my mom. I owed her... but what? Loyalty that came at the cost of my own family's peace? The baby shower itself rolled around a few weeks later, and it should have been one of the happiest days of our lives. My in-laws' backyard was transformed again, this time with blue streamers twisting in the wind, tables piled high with gifts wrapped in silver paper, the air thick with the smell of grilled burgers and fresh-cut watermelon. Laughter bounced everywhere as her family swarmed us with hugs, her mom already tearing up over a tiny pair of booties someone had brought. My dad showed up, awkward but there, clapping me on the back and asking about the crib setup. But my mom? She arrived late, dressed like she was attending a funeral instead of celebrating her first grandson. Black top, tight smile, eyes scanning the crowd like she was looking for reasons to be offended. She hugged my wife stiffly, the kind of embrace that barely touched skin, then spent most of the afternoon in the corner, chatting with my in-laws in that overly polite voice she used when she was performing for an audience. I tried to pull her aside once, the sun warm on my neck as kids from the neighborhood ran past with balloons. Mom, thanks for coming. It means a lot. She looked at me then, really looked, and for a split second I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Hurt, maybe? Or that old manipulation I knew too well. Well, someone had to be here for you two, she said, voice low enough that only I could hear. Even if I wasn't wanted in the planning. The words hung there between us, heavy as the humid afternoon air. I wanted to scream right then, to grab her shoulders and shake loose whatever this poison was that had turned her against us. Instead, I just nodded, throat tight, and walked back to my wife, who was unwrapping a mountain of diapers with this radiant smile that made my heart swell and break all at once. Later that night, after everyone had gone and we were back in our apartment surrounded by piles of baby clothes, my wife curled into me on the couch, her head on my chest. She's still mad about the gender thing, isn't she? She murmured, voice muffled against my shirt. I didn't answer at first. I just held her closer, feeling our son kick between us like he was already trying to remind me what mattered most. My mind spun in the quiet, the rocky years with my mom flashing by like old film reels. The guilt trips over college choices, the way she'd pit family members against each other for attention, the favors that always came back to bite. This time, though, it felt different. This wasn't about me choosing sides. This was her choosing to step away, to punish us for building something without her at the center. And the worst part? I could feel myself starting to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe I had put the in-laws first. Maybe my excitement had crossed some invisible line I didn't even know existed. But then I'd look at my wife, at the way her eyes lit up talking about nursery rhymes and first steps, and the doubt would fade. We were doing this right, for our son, for us. Still, the shutout feeling clawed at me every day. Family trips planned and posted without a word to us. Group texts that suddenly went quiet when I chimed in. And those unanswered I love yous, piling up like unanswered prayers. I'd lie awake some nights, the ceiling fan whirring above us, my hand on her belly, and wonder how one text, 6 words born from pure, unfiltered joy, could unravel 21 years of being her son. Was this the end of us as a family? Or just the beginning of me learning to let go? The days blurred into weeks after the shower, each one carrying that same dull ache in my chest that wouldn't let up, no matter how hard I tried to shake it. Our apartment started to feel smaller somehow, the walls closing in with stacks of unopened baby gear from her side of the family, tiny socks and onesies that smelled like fresh laundry detergent and hope. While my phone stayed stubbornly quiet on the nightstand, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of my wife's soft breathing beside me, her hand instinctively resting on her belly where our son was getting bigger by the day, kicking up a storm like he could feel the tension vibrating through the air. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, the fan clicking overhead in that steady rhythm that used to soothe me, but now it just mocked the chaos in my head. How had one excited text turned me into the villain in my own mother's story? I kept replaying it, the blue confetti swirling, my thumbs flying across the screen, that rush of pure joy that I couldn't contain. Was I really the asshole for sharing it? For not waiting? For not centering her in a moment that wasn't even hers to claim? My wife noticed, of course. She always did. One afternoon, as we were sorting through the mountain of diapers her parents had dropped off, the plastic crinkling under our fingers, the faint powdery scent filling the nursery, she turned to me with those big, understanding eyes that made my throat tighten. "You've been quiet lately," she said, her voice soft but steady, like she was afraid one wrong word would crack me open. I sat cross-legged on the floor, a half-folded blanket in my lap, and just shrugged at first, because what could I even say that wouldn't sound like I was choosing sides again? "It's her, isn't it?" she pressed, scooting closer until her knee brushed mine. The warmth of her touch grounded me, but inside, my thoughts were a whirlwind, guilt twisting with this growing frustration that felt almost foreign, like it belonged to someone else. I'd always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over Mom's moods with apologies and "I love yous" that now went unanswered. But here, with our son's crib assembled and waiting, I started wondering if peace was even possible anymore, or if it had always been an illusion, held together by my willingness to bend until I broke. The exclusions didn't stop. If anything, they sharpened. There was the family cookout at my grandparents' house a couple weeks later. I saw the invite pop up in a group chat that somehow skipped right over me and my wife. Photos flooded Facebook by evening, my mom front and center, laughing with a plate of ribs in her hand. My sister posted beside her with captions about making memories that last. My stomach churned as I scrolled, the glow of the screen reflecting off the dark windows of our living room. I could almost smell the charcoal smoke through the picture, hear the chatter I wasn't part of. I texted her that night, fingers trembling slightly. "Saw the pics. Looked like a good time. Miss you guys." Sent. Read at 9:47 p.m. No dots, no reply. Not even the courtesy of a thumbs up. The next morning I tried calling during my lunch break at work, the hum of the office copier in the background mixing with the knot in my throat. She answered on the third ring, voice clipped like I'd interrupted something important. "I'm busy right now," she said. No hello, no warmth. I pushed through anyway, asking about the cookout, trying to sound casual even as my free hand clenched into a fist at my side. "It was family time," she shot back. "You've made it pretty clear where your priorities are." The words landed like ice water down my spine. Priorities? I wanted to yell into the phone that my priority was the little boy growing inside my wife, the one whose ultrasound pictures I carried in my wallet like a lifeline. But I didn't. I just mumbled an "I'm sorry" that tasted like ash and hung up, the dial tone buzzing in my ear long after she'd gone. That night, after my wife had fallen asleep with her pregnancy pillow wedged just right, I slipped out to the balcony with a beer I didn't even want. The city lights twinkled below, cars humming along the street like nothing in the world was wrong. But inside me, everything was fracturing. I thought about all the times growing up when her narcissism had sucked the air out of the room, The way she'd turn my achievements into her stories, or how she'd weaponize a simple favor like driving me to practice into months of guilt if I didn't thank her enough. She'd always been like that, fishing for sympathy with every little hardship, using gifts as leverage so you'd never forget who held the power. And now it felt like she was rewriting our entire history because I dared to feel joy without looping her in first. My in-laws, on the other hand, were texting daily, sending memes about dad life, offering to come over and help assemble the changing table. Their excitement so genuine it made my eyes sting sometimes. Why couldn't my own blood give us even a fraction of that? The question gnawed at me, mixing with this deep, visceral anger that I hated admitting to. I was 21, about to be a dad, and here I was still chasing approval from a woman who only loved conditionally. Things came to a head, or at least they felt like it, one rainy evening when the baby shower gifts were mostly put away and my wife's belly was so round she had to sit with her feet up on the coffee table. We were watching some mindless show, her head on my shoulder, when my phone lit up with a text from my sister. It wasn't for me, though. It was a forwarded invite to another family trip, this one to the mountains for a long weekend. "Everyone's going," the message read, with laughing emojis and a photo of the cabin they'd booked. No mention of us. I stared at it until the screen went dark, the rain pattering against the windows like it was trying to wash away the hurt. My wife noticed my silence and asked what was wrong, her hand finding mine in the dim light. I showed her the text, and she just sighed, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her coconut shampoo and the faint vanilla of the lotion she used on her stretch marks. "We don't need that," she whispered against my neck. "We've got our own family right here." Her words should have comforted me, and they did, a little. But they also cracked something open. For the first time, I let myself feel the full weight of it. My mom wasn't just mad. She was actively erasing us. Throwing gatherings without invites, posting trips like we'd never existed, ignoring every "I love you" like it was nothing. It wasn't about the gender reveal anymore. It was about control, about her needing to be the center, and me finally stepping out of her orbit. I cried that night, quietly, after my wife had gone to bed. Sat on the edge of the tub in the bathroom with the light off, shoulders shaking as the tears came hot and silent. I felt stupid for it, a grown man breaking down over his mom's cold shoulder, but the emotions were too big, too raw. The excitement I'd felt at that reveal party, the blue confetti dancing in the wind, it all seemed so far away now, tainted by this shadow she'd cast. Part of me still loved her, still wanted to fix it, to call and beg for things to go back to normal. But another part, the one growing stronger with every ignored message, wondered if normal had ever been healthy. Our son was due in just a few more months. He'd come into this world kicking and screaming, innocent and perfect, and I'd be damned if I let her drama touch that. Still, the question haunted me in the quiet hours. Had I really been wrong for sharing that news? Or was this finally the moment I stopped letting her guilt define us? The weeks kept slipping by like sand through my fingers, each one pulling us closer to the due date that now loomed on the calendar like a countdown I both craved and feared. The nursery was finished, finally. Soft blue walls catching the afternoon light just right. The crib my father-in-law and I had wrestled together standing sturdy in the corner. That little mobile of stars and clouds spinning slow above it whenever the AC kicked on. I'd stand in there sometimes after work, the faint scent of fresh paint still lingering in the air, mixed with the clean laundry smell of the folded blankets, and run my hand over the smooth wood railing. Our son was kicking harder now, strong little thumps that my wife would guide my palm to feel, her laugh light and tired as she'd lean back on the couch with her feet propped up. Those moments should have been everything, pure joy wrapping around us like the blanket we'd eventually swaddle him in. But the shadow my mom cast kept creeping in, turning the edges of every happy memory gray. I tried one last time to bridge the gap, because the guilt was eating me alive even as the anger grew roots. It was a random Tuesday evening, rain tapping against the windows again, the kind of steady drizzle that made the city streets outside our apartment glisten under the streetlights. My wife was in the kitchen making tea, the kettle whistling low, and I paced the living room with my phone in hand, heart hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. I dialed her number before I could talk myself out of it, the rings stretching out like they were testing my resolve. She picked up on the fourth one, voice flat and guarded. "What is it?" No hello, no warmth, just that tone that used to make me shrink back as a kid, the one that said I'd already disappointed her before I even opened my mouth. "Mom, I miss you," I started, my free hand clenching at my side, nails digging into my palm. The words felt small and desperate, but they were true. I missed the version of her I'd convinced myself existed under all the layers. The one who'd tuck me in at night when I was little, even if it always came with a story about how hard her day had been. I told her about the nursery, about how the baby was due in 6 weeks now, how we'd love for her to come see it before he arrived. I poured it out, voice cracking a little as I mentioned the ignored texts, the family posts that didn't include us, the way every "I love you" just hung there unanswered. "I didn't mean to hurt you with that text. I was excited. It was our first boy, Mom. I wanted you to know right away." The silence on her end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she sighed, that heavy, theatrical sigh I knew too well, the one that always signaled the guilt trip was loading up. "You still don't get it, do you?" she said, and her voice shifted into that familiar mix of hurt and accusation that used to pull me right back in. "You chose them over us from the start. The in-laws throw a party, and suddenly I'm not good enough to plan anything? I carried you for 9 months, sacrificed everything, and you can't even wait one afternoon to share something this big with your own mother? It's like you're ashamed of us. Throwing family things without you? Well, maybe if you hadn't made me feel so unwanted at the reveal, things would be different." She went on, layering it thick. The favors she'd done over the years, the gifts, the hardships she'd endured raising me alone in her stories, even though Dad had been there the whole time. I could picture her face, lips pressed thin, eyes welling up just enough to sell it. My stomach twisted into knots, bile rising hot in my throat as I stood there in the dim light of our living room, the rain now pounding harder outside like it was trying to drown her words. Part of me wanted to apologize again, to beg, to keep the peace like I always had. But another part, the one that had been growing since that blue confetti exploded, snapped. "Mom, this isn't about choosing sides," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, the words coming out raw and honest for the first time in years. "You've been shutting us out for months. We're about to have a baby, and you're missing it all because of one excited text. I love you, but I can't keep doing this. Not if it means my son grows up thinking love has to be earned by jumping through hoops." The line went quiet again, and then she laughed, short and bitter. "You sound just like them now." "Fine. Go play happy family with your perfect in-laws. Don't expect me to chase after you anymore." Click. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at the phone, chest heaving like I'd run a marathon. I sank onto the couch, elbows on my knees, head in my hands, the weight of it all crashing down. Every childhood memory flashing by in vivid color. Her crying over a canceled dinner because I had soccer practice, using my report card as leverage for more attention, turning every milestone of mine into her personal victory or tragedy. Narcissistic. That word had always floated around in the back of my mind, but now it felt solid, undeniable. She wasn't just hurt, she was punishing us for existing outside her control. My wife came over then, the tea forgotten, and wrapped her arms around me from behind, her belly pressing warm and solid against my back. She didn't say anything at first, just held me while I let a few tears slip out, hot and angry. "You did good," she whispered finally, her breath soft against my ear. "We're not losing anything real here. We've got us. We've got him." Her parents had been texting all week, sending care packages and asking about names. Their support so effortless it made the contrast sting even more. They'd already planned a hospital bag drop-off, cried happy tears again over the latest ultrasound printout. No conditions, no scorekeeping, just love, pure and simple. The next few days were a blur of quiet resolve, mixed with that lingering ache. I stopped checking Facebook for the family posts that no longer included us. Stopped typing "I love you" at the end of messages that went unread anyway. The due date crept closer, and with it came this strange peace settling in my chest, fragile but real. I wasn't the villain in this story. I was just a guy who got excited about his son, building a life that didn't revolve around walking on eggshells. The pain was still there, sharp in the quiet moments, when I wondered what our boy would think one day about his grandma on my side. But it didn't swallow me whole anymore. I'd chosen my family, the one that felt safe and warm. And for the first time, that choice didn't come with guilt. It came with hope. The due date hit like a freight train one sticky summer morning, the kind where the air hung heavy and the city outside our window buzzed with early traffic that felt a million miles away. My wife woke me up at 3 a.m. with a sharp gasp, her hand gripping my arm so tight I could feel her nails through my t-shirt. And in that instant, every doubt, every ignored text, every family photo that didn't include us vanished from my mind. This was it. Our son was coming, and nothing else mattered. I fumbled for the hospital bag we'd packed weeks ago, the one her parents had helped stock with everything from snacks to a tiny blue hat, my heart slamming against my ribs like it had back at that gender reveal party. Only this time, the stakes were everything. "Babe, it's time," she whispered, voice shaky but strong, and I pulled her into a quick hug, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with the faint nervousness in the air. We were ready. I was ready. The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and my hand on her knee, her breathing exercises filling the car while I tried not to speed through the quiet streets. Inside, I was a storm, fear twisting with this overwhelming love that made my eyes burn. I kept thinking about my mom, about that last phone call where she'd hung up on me, her words still echoing like a bad dream. Part of me wondered if she'd show up, if some miracle would pull her back into our orbit now that her grandson was actually arriving. But deep down, I knew better. The exclusions, the cold silences, the way she'd rewritten my excitement as betrayal. It wasn't going to vanish just because a baby was here. Still, I texted her from the hospital parking lot, thumbs flying while my wife was wheeled inside. "He's coming. We'd love you here if you can." Sent. Read immediately. No reply. That familiar rock settled back in my gut, but I shoved it down. This moment wasn't hers to ruin. Labor stretched long and intense, the hospital room humming with beeps from the monitors and the low voices of nurses moving in and out like shadows. I held my wife's hand through every contraction, her grip crushing mine as sweat beaded on her forehead, and she pushed with everything she had. Hours blurred. Pain meds, ice chips, her mom and dad in the waiting room sending encouraging texts that lit up my phone like little lifelines. "You've got this," I kept whispering to her, my voice raw, wiping her hair back from her face, while inside I felt like I was splitting open too. Every push brought me closer to the edge of something huge, this visceral wave of protectiveness that made my chest ache. I thought about my own childhood, the guilt trips and the emotional leverage, and swore right there in that sterile room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of antiseptic sharp in my nose, that our son would never know that weight. He'd know unconditional love, the kind her family had shown us from day one. No strings, no performances. Then, at 7:42 p.m., after one final guttural push that had my wife crying out and me holding my breath, he was here. Our boy. The doctor lifted him up, tiny and wrinkled and perfect, his first cry piercing the room like a victory bell. I cut the cord with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, tears streaming down my face as the nurse placed him on my wife's chest. He was so small, so warm, his little fingers curling around nothing as he quieted against her skin. In that moment, the world narrowed to just us three. The weight of his tiny body against her, the way her exhausted laugh mixed with sobs of joy, and me leaning in close enough to smell that new baby scent, fresh and miraculous. My heart felt like it might burst right out of my chest. All the months of tension, the family drama, the unanswered I love yous, they faded into background noise. This was real. This was ours. Her parents burst in after the nurses gave the okay, their faces lighting up with pure, unfiltered tears as they hugged us both, cooing over their grandson like he was the most precious thing on earth. They brought flowers and a stuffed bear, their support wrapping around the room like a warm blanket. I snapped photos, texted them to my dad, who replied instantly with hearts and, "Proud of you, son." But my mom's silence stretched on. No call, no message, not even a thumbs up. By the time we were settled in the recovery room, the city lights twinkling outside the window, and our boy nursing peacefully in my wife's arms, I felt it fully. The finality of it. She'd chosen her narrative over us. Chosen to miss this because one text had bruised her ego. The realization hit like a punch to the sternum, but instead of breaking me, it settled something deep inside. I wasn't shutting her out. She'd walked away. And for the first time, I was okay with that. The next few days at home were a beautiful haze of exhaustion and wonder. Diaper changes at 2 a.m., my wife and I tag-teaming feeds while the nursery glowed softly with the nightlight we'd picked out together. I'd rock him in the glider chair, his little head nestled against my shoulder, and feel this profound peace wash over me. Fatherhood wasn't what I expected. It was messier, more terrifying, and infinitely more rewarding. Every cry, every gummy smile, chipped away at the old scars my mom had left. I thought about reaching out one more time, maybe sending a photo of him swaddled in the blue blanket from the shower, but I stopped myself. Some bridges burn for a reason. I'd spent 21 years dancing around her narcissism, letting her guilt and manipulations dictate the rhythm of my life. Now, with this tiny human depending on me, I chose different, healthier. The in-laws stepped up without being asked. Meals dropped off, offers to watch him so we could nap, genuine excitement that never felt like a transaction. I'm still trying to process all of this, even now, weeks later, as I sit here in the quiet of our apartment with our son sleeping in the bassinet beside me. The weight that used to press on my chest every time I thought about my mom has lightened, replaced by this fierce determination to be the father he deserves. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and it helps more than you know. And if you want to hear more of my journey through fatherhood and figuring out these messy family ties, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're in this together.